and in his name the Gentiles will hope. As far as the reading of God's holy word, let's pray together. Father, thank you for your word. Thank you for your spirit. Thank you, God, that you've given us, Lord, your revelation, that we can hold it in our hands ourselves. And we get to pour over, Father, all of your promises, Lord, that you promised to your people about Mashiach, about the Messiah. Thank you, Lord, that you chose to put us into your story, Lord, after the time of Christ, and we get to look back at all of your providence, the beauty, Lord, of your sovereignty. And you are weaving together history for your glory. Thank you, Lord, that we have an ultimate standard to point to stand on.
Hi, I'm Errol McGinnis. I'm the producer of Gods and Glass Tubes. I'm shooting this intro slightly different. Obviously, it's a different location. We're not at IVF. I'm actually sitting on my back patio. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to debate Jeff Durbin. It was an interesting debate indeed. It was the first time that I had really stepped into the arena of debate. It's not really my forte, but it was certainly an interesting experience indeed. The conversation was long, and it was all videotaped. It was videotaped not just by the crew of Vice, but I also taped it myself. And of course, Apologia Church, they did their live feed. So I'm going to play that tape. I'm going to play that tape uncut, unedited. For disclosure, there are 3 fade points in there. The 3 fade points are because I had to join the 3 segments of the film together, because shooting the film in one long segment was impractical as far as loading it up into my software. But other than 3 fade points, the video is uncut, unedited. It's raw, and here we go.
You came prepared this time.
We talking?
Well played.
Yeah.
We're talking.
Where at? Where do you guys want to do this? On that way? Okay. I don't know. Wherever they go. Where at? Mike? Yeah. It seems like it's really loud this time. Yeah, it does, right? And it's pointing me straight on. Maybe you just ask them. Like, did you ask them?
Yeah, they've turned it down a few times for us.
They won't turn it.
They won't turn it down anymore.
Oh, there's some history. We can get into that later.
Yeah. Interesting. There's some shade down there. Can we go to that shade?
Whatever's clever.
It's like the hot spot right here.
Yeah, let's go in the shade a little bit further.
Gotta get footage for my grandkids.
You got it. How you doing, brother? You right? Huh? How you doing, mate? You alright?
So this is Jeff Durbin. We have a bromance from it's a complicated relationship, though.
It's very complicated.
It's a very complicated bromance. Jeff and I have quite a bit of history. I probably know Jeff certainly more than he knows me, going all the way back to the Empire State Nationals days.
Oh,
I went back a ways.
Yeah, you did.
I went back a ways.
He watches my videos.
This is one of these things that Jeff doesn't know, is that I was a huge fan of his from his karate days.
No.
I am.
Really?
I am. I have been for quite some time. You know, like I said, going back to the Empire National days.
Right on.
So,
Wow.
it's kind of a unique situation that Jeff and I find ourselves kind of head to head here on this particular issue, and we've certainly gone head to head.
Yeah.
Jeff will be sure to enlighten you about that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think initially, I don't know how long you've been coming out. How long has it been now?
I've been coming out to this location for probably about 7 months now.
Okay.
I have been to other locations. I actually did a counter protest at an IVF clinic, of all places, in Texas. AHA was out there protesting.
Recently did that?
It was actually a couple years ago.
Oh,
What
okay.
do you think about IVF clinic? I just got to ask you.
We've talked about that. Yeah, it's when we first started doing this a couple years ago, getting involved. We started doing our research, trying to figure out how do we do this? How do we minister to the women? How do we do it in a way that?
Do you agree with the IVF clinic?
No. I struggle, and Errol and I talked a bit about this. I struggle with the idea of creating unique life and then either destroying it or putting it on ice.
Do you protest them?
I haven't yet been able to do that yet,
Wow.
but what we're involved in is our church is going the direction of getting involved in. Have you ever heard of snowflake babies? That's the human beings that are produced through these IVF processes. They usually produce way more than they need, and they'll put them on ice. So snowflake adoptions are essentially getting those human beings and implanting them into into a mother's uterus so that it can grow. And so there's amazing stories today of children alive today because they were snowflake babies. And so creating unique human life and then destroying it, creating unique human life and throwing it away, we think is a horrible thing.
So how come you don't protest them though?
We're getting to it. Put it that way.
How come you haven't yet?
Because we're super busy. We're busy right now trying to end abortion. And so we're getting to it. So what we are invested in right now is adoption. We have people at Apologia Church that are invested in adoption, foster care. We have a lot of kids at Apologia Church that have come through or with us now. They're adopted or part of the foster care system. We have a lot of parents at our church that are regularly involved in foster care. And so snowflake babies is something we actually want to invest in. And we're getting to it. We're a small church, and so we're getting to it.
So how come you chose the abortion stuff before the snowflake stuff?
Because, well, for us, the abortion issue, we have about over 3,000 babies a day killed by abortion, either chemical or surgical abortion. So we're trying to tackle the big giant right now and sort of the foundational mindset in our country of how we treat children.
I understand.
And so that's why we're investing there, but we're also investing in adoption and hopefully someday snowflake babies.
Why do you think he doesn't protest the IVF?
I don't really know. That was certainly a question that I asked him in front of a clinic, and to his credit, his immediate response was that he took ownership of that. He said that that's I believe the quote was, "We have blind spots in our I have blind spots in my religion," and I'll grant that as somebody of faith, I had blind spots in my religion too. That kind of turned into turning a total eye away from religion. I disavowed faith, and that's getting into a whole different subject altogether. As far as why he doesn't, I don't really have the answer for that. There's some footage that I shot that I contrast that where he's here with Apologia Church. He has this big old huge assembly here. I counted the number of the patients that went in for procedures that day. There were 7. One of the biggest days that they were out there protesting, there were 7. On the average, in an IVF clinic, over 100 embryos are destroyed every single day, 5 days a week. The one that I film at, their average runs about 70 embryos a day that are destroyed, donated to medical research. So I kind of contrasted those numbers. If life is what he's concerned about, let's talk about life. If you want, if Christianity, and it's not just Jeff, I'm not going to just pin this on Jeff, it's Christianity in general. When they have this worldview that every single fertilized embryo is of equal value, then why does it not come to the point of protesting IVF. Now, the particular clinic that I shoot my footage at is run by a Christian. He's run by an avowed Baptist. He attends a Baptist church here in Chandler. So that doctor actually, he professes Christianity. He's very strong in his faith, to the extent that during one of his campaigns to advertise his clinic, one of his seminars, there was a single woman that asked him, can you assist me with IVF? And he stated that no, he couldn't do that because it was against his Christian moral view. The reason that he did was because she's a lesbian. So if you look at that contrast, here he is okay with operating a clinic that can destroy up to 70, in Jeff's own definition, 70 live embryos, 70 conceived children. We'll call them children. He's okay with doing that. He's perfectly comfortable with doing that. In his eye, God condones that. And yet, he is going to deny the one life that he doesn't have to destroy. He did not have to destroy this life because she wanted to take on somebody else's, and she's not the only case. But I will reference this one case because, even without her name, she gave me permission to reference the case. So he denied her the opportunity to take one of these embryos that he was going to destroy. And he decided that instead of allowing her to, implant this embryo into her womb, because she's a lesbian, he would rather destroy it. So where does the perfect morality that we hear about, where does the perfect standard lie? Is it a perfect standard to deny a human life because it's going to be hosted by a lesbian? Is it a perfect human standard to deny human life because it's going to be fostered by gay parents? Is it standard to deny a human life because my girlfriend and I want to adopt, and yet we're blocked because she's transgender? We actually want to adopt, and we are denied. Because in the realm of an industry that's operated primarily by Christian worldview, we can't. The Christians would rather these babies die in an abortion clinic than be adopted by us.
So I think the heart of the problem needs to be addressed first and foremost. It's not all the externals, right, that we can talk about all the problems that arise because of IVF. We have to talk about fundamentally what's wrong with the practice. And I think it shows an interesting way of actually coming at this discussion in terms of bringing up IVF. We shift the discussion away from what's taking place in surgical abortion, dismembering children, killing them by chemicals, tearing their bodies apart, and we say, but Jeff, look over here, you don't have a ministry yet over to IVF, right? Well, try that now in another realm. Say to speak to somebody about the issue of police injustice, right? We say to somebody over here, well, there's an organization that's trying to stop police injustice over here. But there's all these other issues of injustice over here. We say to that person that has an organization fighting against police injustice, hey, why aren't you doing everything? You're inconsistent. You're not doing everything. I think it's a failed argument. I think it's a very bad argument. And so what we want to actually go after is not just this issue, IVF, is go after the fundamental worldview issues involved.
What's your views on, say, preventive measures like contraceptive and sex education for children to try and prevent pregnancy in the first place? Do you agree with that type of stuff?
So contraceptives that are essentially abortifacients that are essentially abortifacients.
Well, you guys don't do abortifacients.
So abortifacients is an abortion drug.
You think like a condom's an abortion drug?
No, not a condom. I'm talking about the pills, chemical. If it's an abortifacient.
So you agree with like condoms and stuff like that?
Well, if someone wants to wear a condom, I don't have any problem with that. I think in terms of like married couples, that's kind of weird. But in terms of like someone wearing a condom, there's nothing sinful ultimately about that.
But the pills are
but something that's an abortifacient that'll ultimately kill a child. So it allows for the child to be conceived, but it forces it to essentially not be able to implant and die. That's an abortifacient ultimately. So we're opposed to that because we want to be consistent. And so when addressing the issue of pills like that, we think it's important to talk about what's actually taking place. It's not really stopping the conception of a child, but stopping it from being able to thrive and implant. So we're concerned with that.
So, but if say like abortion's the issue, what's the preventive measures before the abortion then? Like,
what's the preventative measure?
Yeah, of not getting pregnant. Because the pill is like a very good way of not getting pregnant to then not.
It's not a way not to get pregnant. It's a way to get. You can still conceive with a lot of these abortifacients. You can still conceive. It just stops the child from actually being able to grow. So it's stopping it. But in terms of, it's a worldview issue. If we live in a society where we ultimately say anything goes, right, sexually. There are no perversions. There's nothing that's ultimately right or wrong. It's love is love. All is love. You can do what you like. That's a worldview issue. We have to ask the question, is all love the same love? Is all sex good? Are there standards of what's not good in sex, in human sexuality? For example, we could say, is it okay to have sex with animals? Is that a righteous and good thing to do? If someone says, well, I'm an atheist, but I don't believe that having sex with animals is a good thing. I think it's actually, disgusting and not right sexuality. I would ask, by what standard? What standard are you using to determine that this sexual act is not good and this one is good? And I would say, ultimately, if you don't start from a biblical worldview, you don't have any ultimately meaningful or consistent ability.
Yeah, I know you said before.
Right. Yeah, and it needs to keep being said because that gets to the heart of the issue. And so when someone says, what's the preventative measure? I think ultimately we need to have a heart change as a culture. We need to, of course, know Jesus, know God. Yeah. We need to begin to see each other as worthy of respect and dignity in life. So, for example, Errol and I, we care about each other.
We do.
I do. I care about Errol. We respect each other. We have moments where we
like each other.
I do.
We do like each other. We certainly have some interesting conversation, and we certainly have some pretty poignant moments. I know that Jeff is out here to support his view. I'm certainly out here to support my view, and they're going to be on the opposite sides of the pole. I respect Jeff not only for what he's done here, but also, for his kick-ass kata at the Empire Nationals. That was freaking insane.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
I have to show you some other ones. I like my other ones better.
But getting back to the issue, and he discusses consistency. So let's throw consistency on the table. Okay. So now that everyone is familiar with who Jocelyn is, if Jocelyn and I were to go to, and we'll suppose you run a clinic. You saved a baby from an abortion clinic. And Jocelyn and I step in there and say, Jeff, we want to adopt this child. Your answer would be?
So if we're talking fundamentally about the preservation of life, right?
Right.
We're talking about the preservation of life, and I have a moral dilemma, right? For example, I love and respect you, but I don't agree with your choices sexually, right? And you know that.
Exactly.
And you disagree
That's
with me.
why I'm asking you the question.
Right. So I think that I would want you to know God and know His ways and live in a more harmonious way, right? However, you also have a dilemma where there's the issue of preservation of life itself. And you put me in a moral dilemma and you say,
yes, I did.
It's either baby die or it goes over here with a gay couple or something like that, right? I would say
we'll call it gay for your words.
I'm going to go for the preservation of life every time when it comes down to the moral dilemma of preserving life. Because I have to weigh in the balance what's more important at the moment and just hope and pray that not only you and Jocelyn come to have your eyes open to a harmonious relationship, those sorts of things, but also for that child. I want the preservation of life. That's what I would always want. But in terms of policy and in terms of how we think about it as a society, we have to ask the question, is it right to ask a child to grow up in a home guaranteed not to have a mother or a father? In terms of a father, male, and mother, you're asking children to be guaranteed to be raised in a home without a mother or a father. I think that that's something we need to consider as a community, as a society, to put children in that situation.
I will actually give you that example. And because this is a very personal friend of mine.
Okay.
She transitioned 20 years ago. Before she transitioned, she went to China and she adopted 2 little girls to save them from the China's one girl only family policy.
Horrible, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she adopted these 2 girls.
You say she, you're talking about somebody that was a male?
Somebody who used to be male, who transitioned into a female.
What does that mean, transitions? From your perspective, what's that mean?
Okay, I'll give you the medical perspective, and I'll give you this woman's perspective, is that she was born with her identity not congruent with her physical presentation.
Okay, so you're talking about biologically speaking, he was a male. Biologically, scientifically.
For biology and for your vocabulary.
Objectively.
For your vocabulary, yes, he was born male. And then for the context of the conversation after the transition, for what we now refer to as she.
Can you describe what you mean by transition? Do you mean
she fully transitioned?
That he, a biological male,
underwent an entire physical therapy.
Mutilation.
If you want to call it that. I'm not going to call it mutilation because I know this woman and I know that this was the biggest, most liberating thing that she's done with her life.
I don't mean in any way to be hurtful, but I mean in the sense of let's talk about what's facts.
I'm using your vocabulary.
Okay.
I would ask that you use mine.
So there's mutilation that was involved, but if we were to look biologically at this person today and put it under a microscope, is it biologically a male or a female? Biologically.
First of all, there's no it to it. This woman is a very respected woman in her community. She's also a pilot. She's an airline pilot. Okay. Now, the two daughters that she raised on her own.
You're shifting now.
Okay. No, I'm completing my question.
All right.
The two daughters that she raised on her own both now have a full boat scholarship to Cambridge, one for music and one for English.
What's that have to do with the biology?
Exactly, Jeff. What does it have to do with the biology? Nothing.
Well, I asked you
this woman raised two beautiful children. Both of them are prodigies.
Good.
Okay.
But
both of them.
I asked you the question about we're on biology, and you're shifted now to what she's done with what you say she's done with her children.
My point. I just made my point. The biology doesn't matter.
No, I asked
the
you.
The biology in this case did not matter at all whatsoever.
What is the biology? And
I'm not speaking out of anger. I'm speaking out of passion.
I know. And you know that I know your passion. But what is the biological position? If we were to look objectively, scientifically, the biology is still that of a male, right?
No. The biology has been changed by man to that of a female.
So that's literally biologically impossible.
I know you're not going to accept that, but her
biologically impossible.
It has her biology. When I say it, I mean her biology.
The chromosomes, the DNA, still male.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The chromosomes, and the DNA of somebody with a cleft palate. Okay. Are you going to mend that cleft palate because the chromosomes and the genes dictate a cleft palate?
That's a category error.
No, it's not a category error.
What would you say to the woman, and I could show you the video.
We have these discussions.
What would you say to the woman who believes that she's a cat?
I think they're very educational. I think that they kind of bring these issues to the forefront. They bring Christianity to recognize that they are going to be resisted. They're going to be resisted with reason, not just mine.
Yeah.
Matt Dillahunty.
When you hear that right there, and this, we allow each other to say the hard things to each other because we both claim to love truth. When you see someone like Errol say, we're going to resist him with reason, but that's not what you just saw. You didn't see reason there. You saw someone that is trying
because two children that are going to Cambridge on a full boat scholarship is not reasonable.
About what the parent did for the children. We're talking about biologically speaking, what objectively, scientifically, with rationality and logic, what is the gender of this person who mutilated themselves.
See, and this is where this conversation has to go back to.
Biologically, scientifically.
I'll wait because I don't want to talk over.
Yeah, because I mean, it's there is a certain sense of there is a philosophy that gender is fluid, and
sure.
So even though even though you have your personal truth, I feel like he has his personal truth too, and it is a lot of it. Even though the problem is sometimes on both sides. You say fact, when it is a lot of his opinion.
Well, no, this was a fact, and it can't be refuted. And Errol's not trying to refute it. He's just saying, I think what she did with her children is an amazing thing. So, for example, if someone would say gender is fluid, I would say is age fluid. So, if I told you today that I'm 75 years old, is it true? Because I believe it. No, factually, objectively, scientifically, it's not true.
Well, that leads me to ask the same question: is a cleft palate fluid?
If I told you I was feline, I was a cat.
Yeah, but that's different.
How's it different?
That's a whole different species.
It's identity, though.
I hear what you're saying. But I mean, if someone wants to live as a cat, that's their business as well. But
would you believe them that they're a cat?
I mean, if they said to me, would you call me Pebbles? I probably would, because that's what they want, and it's not.
But are they a cat?
Do I think they're a cat?
Yeah.
Probably not, no.
Yeah, there you go. So if I'm a male, and I say that I'm a woman now, am I a woman?
Do I think you're a woman?
Yeah.
Well, your estrogen levels, and you've gone through a transition of genitals and stuff like that.
But I'm biologically a male.
I'm happy to see the woman. I don't know the science behind it, but I'm happy to see the woman.
So and that shows, I think, the importance of the discussion is the Christians are the ones that are saying, what we need to look at rationale.
So, in looking at the way that apologetics debate the way they want to put forth their point, what the summation of it is, every time I try to bring up a valid point, Jeff had to change that point to one of his standard talking points and make some attempt to invalidate it. This kind of brings to fruition the whole reason that Christianity is going to have a very difficult time getting anything done that they want to get done. They're going to have a very difficult time achieving any of these lofty goals that they have of things like ending abortion and you know, turning the world heterosexual and whatever other objectives they want to try and achieve. It boils down to this whole process of being in the world but not of the world. You know, unless part of that world, you know, if they can tuck part of that world under the rug and, you know, hope it goes away, it's not going to go away. As long as they want to put this big priority on ending abortion while putting no effort whatsoever into such activities as in vitro fertilization, as long as they want to continue to, you know, as far as I see, act like they want to end abortion, we're coming to see more and more that they're becoming more dependent on abortion than Planned Parenthood is. If abortion were to end and these ministries were to end, what would happen with you know, with things like the donations and things like these so-called preaching opportunities? Because you see, it's rapidly becoming visible, it's rapidly becoming clear that abortion, you know, the ending abortion isn't so much about saving lives as it is about dictating the lives that are already being led. It's about dictating sexual proclivities. It's about dictating orientation. It's about dictating people's identity. And at the end of the day, that's not going to get dictated. Nobody's going to change my identity. Nobody's going to change who I am. Nobody's going to change who Jocelyn is, and all those people that I mentioned in the video. Nobody's going to change them. They're not going to change. They are who they are, and they're people who want to lead their lives, and they're people who want to make the world a more positive place than it was when they stepped foot in it. And then it seems to be anymore. It's all about Christians who want to stop that endeavor to make the world a better place. They don't want to make the world a better place. They want to make the world a more controlled place. So I part with that. Again, if you're a Christian and you're watching the show, by all means, feel free to pray for me, because I will most certainly think for you. Thanks for watching Gods and Glass Tubes.